Good afternoon, YouTube. We're here at my house in my stairwell. We're going to take a deeper look at this sculpture today. Call it Kaleidoscycle II. I don't know, it's kind of a cheesy name. I'm going to give you a deep dive on it. There's going to be a few little Easter eggs for some bike nerds in the crowd. Otherwise, this is going to be a more or less stream of consciousness sort of thing. So let's get to it. So this sculpture has been here for a good number of years now. 15 wheels, all moving under the power of one motor that's behind that wheel right there. The secret to the whole thing is that there are 3 separate chains and 3 separate planes that those chains use. So if we see this from the side, now you can really see we've got one plane right against the wall, another plane just on the outside. You can see this wheel actually has a gear on both sides. That's one plane. The second plane, when we come down over here, we got another wheel with 2 gears on both sides. And that's the third plane. We've got hardware to attach everything. We got these brackets that I'll show you a little more closely in a second. So let's talk about how we made it and some of the pieces that's involved in the structure. I had a local shop make me some metal plates. Wouldn't be hard to make yourself. I was doing a good number of them in quantity, so I just had the shop make them. They weren't all flat. This is for the ones that are flat against the wall, but for the ones that stick out to make those other planes, this is our bracket. So this is for that second plane. I gave the shop very specific dimensions, how to make it, and had them make me a bunch of these. We've got flat plates. So we also have ones that stick out about 5 inches, maybe 120 millimeters or so. I also had to make brackets for the motor. This is another plate made with a larger hole to which I can attach this motor. This thing was simply bolted right on, sticking through the wall, and run it. This is a really simple motor. You can find these online, often under auger mowers. They're really basic motors. There's not much power. They don't need much. 15 different wheels. You know, it's funny, I kind of look at this sometimes and think it's the shape of France. L'Hexagone, like it's the map for the Tour de France or something. So 15 wheels. The motor behind the yellow one, that one spins, pulls the chain from that purple one, which pulls the chain from the black one, and the brown one, the rainbow, to the blue, up to the corner, orange, back, and back. That's the one chain. That's the longest chain. It's made up multiple pieces of bike chain, all strung together. We've got a second chain, the second plane, if you will, from the wall. It starts with this wheel here with the 2 different gears. This inside chain, that's the one that's ultimately being driven by the yellow wheel. This chain is being driven by this wheel. The tension here is pulling this and then pulling this. So this chain, which is the second plane out from the wall, this chain drives the green one, which drives this silver one, which connects to this one, back, up, and back. It does that shape. But it's this bottom here that's the other wheel that has 2 gears. It has one on each side. So it catches the plane number 2, if you will, on this side. And then it's driving over here. And this chain does this group here, where the chain pulls along in this corner, pulls down, around, pulls this wheel, and up. So those are the 3 different chains. We start with the yellow wheel up by the top. That one is the driving motor. I removed the axle and bearings from that wheel because it's not spinning on the axle. The axle is essentially, now there's a new axle that's fixed and does not rotate within the wheel, so that when the axle moves, the wheel moves. And that's happening right there. If we look at this example, where I have attached this threaded rod through which I can pass the bike hub, tighten it on the other side, and basically lock a bike wheel onto this motor. So that's what's happening up there. As far as treatment wise, I kept this one. Everything's very symmetrical. It's all hand done stained glass. We have opaque glass, transparent glass, opalescent glass, all in that yellowish orange kind of theme. Again, done very symmetrically. We wind our way to the next wheel that chain goes to. Right here. Now I say it goes to, the chain does go from there to there, but of course the way the motor's turning, it's actually pulling tension down that way and around. But we're going to go somewhat clockwise here. So that drives it. And then we come to this wheel in the middle. It's a 20-inch bike wheel, nothing special. BMX kind of style, if you will. I tried experimenting with my glass cutting. I was very new at it. Tried to get a circle. It's not a very good circle. I could definitely do that better, and I've considered redoing it, but why? It's been here for years. You may notice the way I put this glass on. This is not traditional stained glass techniques. I've simply used foil tape. I've dabbled in a little soldering to do it more traditional stained glass techniques. I find this method way easier for me, much less time, and works fantastic, especially for an indoor sculpture. You notice there's some mirror pieces on there as well, and that wheel then comes us to this corner wheel. It's a pretty important wheel for the structure of the sculpture because of the way it's being driven on one side and then driving the rest of it on the other. This particular pane of glass right here was cut from a friend of mine, Matt Janke. He's got a glass blowing studio in Atlanta, and when I was starting to learn how to do this and didn't have a clue what I was doing, I talked with him and we showed up, and he cut that glass for me, kind of showed me how to do some basics, and that's that piece right there. The rest of these I then cut, again, just keeping with that same kind of thing. This is an interesting wheel. It's again about a 20-inch size, but you see very few spokes, aluminum rim. It's a higher end, if you would, smaller wheel. It's probably from a fancy folding bike or something. So the next wheel, coming off the orange one, we're talking about the plane number 1, if you will. Comes down this one right in the middle here with the copper accents. This is one of my favorites. I really like the color palette, the way it turned out. This is a Shimano Ultegra hub. I didn't get it because of the hub, of course. I just got it because it was a used wheel, but it came with this Mavic Mavic Reflex rim. It's getting pretty dusty. In an anodized blue, so I let that drive my color palette. We've got some blues with some copper foil accents. This was a cassette hub. It still is. I spaced it with just that single gear on there. Now, one thing that's kind of important, it's hard to see, but the plate behind this, where this is attached to the wall, that plate has some extra horizontal space in the hole. It's a slot so that I can actually move this whole wheel. I can loosen this and I can move this whole wheel in or out and thus adjust the tension on that first loop of chain. All right, we go from our Ultegra wheel down to the corner, little rainbow one. Cute little rim. We've kind of dubbed this one as my daughter's. 20-inch wheel, BMX style. Red, well now pink anodizing as it's faded a bit over the years when I got this wheel. Nothing special as far as spokes and everything. And you can see I went with a very straightforward rainbow pattern. Really trying to figure out the basics of how to work with glass. This one you can actually give it a whirl. As we head over, see again we've got chain, lots of different chain pieced together. But here it goes from the one chain into a green one. Here we got blue chain and pink chain. So we come this way, get to this brown wheel. Really nice colors. It's a really basic wheel. It's a steel rim, steel hub, like stamped steel. I mean, this is a super cheap wheel. But for what my purposes, this is perfect. You know, we went with this one. We did this color palette with all these browns and the copper. As we go from there, we go up to this black wheel right here in the middle. Black and silver was the color palette. The rim's actually been painted a gloss black just to accent that. We have transparent kind of smoke colored glass. We've got mirrors, we've got crackle kind of finished glass, and we've got some triangles of carbon fiber. As we move along, we'll get to this purple wheel. The really nice choice of glass in this purple. We had a lot of different options, some iridescent options as well. This actual wheel I laced up as a wheel, meaning I took all the spokes and everything and built it all together. In the late 90s, when I was working at a bicycle shop, I can still see the sticker on the rim from when I built it. And I rode it for years on probably a commuting bike, maybe one of my training bikes. But now it's been living on this wall for years. So now we're going to start talking about the second plane of wheels. And we'll start again from this corner because this is where this is being driven from. This is a freewheeling cassette on this side that the motion of this normally would actually just be spinning the freewheel and not moving everything. So I purposely jammed up the works here with some JB weld and other things to keep this from moving. And it works great. The chain goes along, and next we hit this guy. That's a Ringley hub. 20-inch size, aluminum rim, big fat aluminum rim. Nothing special with the color palette, just this turquoise. we work our way down to the next wheel on that, which is again another very important wheel for the structure of the sculpture, and that's this one right here. So we have a track wheel with, again, gears on both sides, being driven on the second plane here and starting to drive the third plane here. This wheel I experimented with the glass and the finish. I don't really love the results, but I'm living with it. I started with this bluish color. It's very, there's a lot of opacity and some purples in here and just texture, and it was a nice glass. And I placed it on, and then I started cutting things back, trying to form like a spiral sort of pattern. I don't know. Kind of works, kind of doesn't. But then I wanted to experiment with patinaing the copper. This is foil tape, just like everywhere else. In fact, this is a part I repaired a couple years ago. It never did get patinaed. And I followed some instructions I found online and put this in a plastic bag with some ammonia or something. I don't remember exactly the technique. And left it for a day or so, and we got this color. It works great. Just as with the other one, this one has a lot going on here at this attachment point. There's a vertical slot through which, again, I can adjust the tension by moving this wheel up and down. You can see, if you get close look at these things, the way they're attached to the wall. It's just a pretty simple bracket and then bolted from behind. Nothing more complicated than that. After that wheel, we go to this one. I'm pretty sure it's the slowest moving wheel on the entire sculpture. They're all driven by, you know, one chain which drives another chain which drives another chain. They're all essentially going the same speed in that sense. However, the gear on each wheel is potentially different. So some wheels have smaller gears and they'll spin faster. Other ones have bigger gears, larger diameter gears, so they'll move slower. And this particular one, this green one right here, has a Shimano Alpine rear hub. This is, I believe, the 8-speed one. I had a really good friend, Jim, who helped me with that hub years ago. I think we might have even traded some dentistry for this hub. And I rode this hub for at least a decade, if not more, of commuting here in Atlanta. It's on a Sun Rims 700C rim. But eventually it was wearing things out. I had a newer Alpine hub with more gears, and this one got relegated, or perhaps promoted, to being wall art. Because of it's an internally geared hub with 8 gears inside there, without any tension on the cable, it automatically goes to its lowest gear, meaning this thing turns very slowly. So if we go with this wheel, the next one on the second plane is this shiny silver one right here in the middle. This is a Campagnolo brand wheel. If you look closely, you can see it says Atlanta 1996. Yes, I live in Atlanta. Yes, the Olympics were in 1996. No, this is not Campagnolo equipment from the Olympics. There was a period of time where Campagnolo was branding some of their models after various Olympic cities. So this is the Atlanta one. I bought it specifically because of this. I wanted something like this for this project. Paid more than I should have for it for what it is, but there's not any more of these being made in the world. So the glass is all clear, although there's some tint and some iridescence to the glass, so you get totally different colors. as the light changes throughout the day. From that wheel right in the middle, and the next one we hit, this green one up here. Shiny silver anodized aluminum, basic aluminum black hub, stainless spokes. It's a decent rim, a decent wheel, not particularly brand name, but not cheap one either. But again, I need it just for function, not for form. We've got more green glass and mirror pieces, copper tape, and the chain comes back around, and that's the end of that plane. The next plane, the last little bit, we go from this wheel onto this green one. From the green one, we go to our tiniest little wheel of the whole sculpture. This little thing right here. I don't even know, that's like an 8-inch, 10-inch wheel. Really cheap, basic steel wheel. Put some nicer little, it looks nicer because they put all the glass and the copper foil tape. But there's nothing particularly special about this little guy. The last one on this plane is this black wheel up in the corner right here. One of my favorite patterns with the glass. It's so simple. I didn't bother trying to do anything symmetrical. Just a few separate, just simple panels, different colors. Gloss black paint on the rim. If you notice, the spoke pattern is actually a little different. So the drive side, meaning this side, it's a standard, it looks like it's a 2-cross spoke pattern. But on the back side is actually a radial laced spoke pattern. So that gave me a few different options with the way I was able to lace the spokes. Other little notes, I think this purple one, I believe that's the fastest wheel on the whole sculpture. I've also added a few mirrors here and there, add a little extra visual interest. I don't know how much chain we've got going on here. It's probably, I don't know, 40, 50 feet of chain or more. This thing's been going every day. I used to have it go non-stop. It would go 24 hours a day. I find that it keeps moving more reliably and consistently if I actually give it a little break. So basically it turns off every night. I've got it on a smart timer. I control when it comes on and off, and have it shut off every night. It's a quiet motor. It's not a very powerful motor. So if things wind up out of alignment or other things, it can bog down, and I've had problems where it stopped spinning, that just the tension was too much. But I have not done any significant maintenance other than a little spray lubricant every now and then. It's really dusty. I absolutely wish we had better, I wish I could put this up against a large outdoor window to get the light coming through the glass. Of course, I mean, day one when I wanted to do a sculpture like this, one day I'll do it, and we'll get a sculpture like this in front of a window where you get the light coming through. But that's not what this space called for. So I've added lighting. There's simple LED track lighting that's spotlights that hit on it. They vary their intensity throughout the day based on a schedule that I have. In the early morning, depending on the time of year, we'll get a lot of sunlight in through this window that hits off the glass. In the afternoon, the sun's actually, light's coming in this way, but I've put a whole bunch of little mirrors hidden just inside the window, so that when the sun comes in the afternoons, especially in the winter, we get little sun circles all lit up. You know, the creation of this wasn't something I just started saying, okay, let's start sticking things on the wall. There was lots of planning. I started with measurements of the area. I sketched it out. There's some things here that are obvious once you see it, but not so obvious here. I wanted to make sure that my kids couldn't reach through and touch this, either down there and from the stairs. I didn't want, for their safety, so they're not messing with it, but also don't want kids messing with it. They're big enough now, sure, they could reach, but now they're old enough I'm less worried. Once I had a basic layout, I started laying things out on the wall. I started making a grid and drawing approximate positions. Some things had to change. For instance, where it had to start with, for instance, the motor. The motor had to be next to a stud, not over a stud. And so that was done there. Then everything was based off of that. And of course, there are studs in the wall that I had to work with or around. And a few things got moved. Thank you for exploring this sculpture with me. I get to look at this every single day. I love it. When the power goes out or something and it's all quiet and we don't hear even the little tiny noise, something feels wrong. It's part of our house now. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, please. I don't put that many videos out, but those numbers, they help. YouTube now said I'm still not getting enough views, so they're taking away my monetization. I don't like asking, but I'd love it if you wanted to subscribe, share with this with some friends, ask me some questions. Thank you.